This submission is a 7-level exploration of Lotus cars, tracing the brand's evolution from Colin Chapman's ultra-lightweight sports cars to its modern electric vehicles and bespoke hypercars. Let's look closely at the section discussing Level 5 and Level 6, because reading through this progression of vehicles currently feels a bit like walking through a meticulously curated museum exhibit, only to find one of the placards has been bolted onto the completely wrong display case.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, we're moving from internal combustion engines into the electric era, and suddenly the organizational logic hits a massive speed bump.
That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered that maintaining precise nomenclature is critical when distinguishing between distinct hypercar and Grand Tourer segments in Lotus's modern lineup.
Right. Especially with a brand like this.
Exactly. The specific blind spot in this section is that Level 5 mistakenly names the $106,000 electric Grand Tourer the Evoque,
Yeah, which is...
placing it in competition with mainstream luxury EVs, like the Porsche Taycan.
Right.
But the actual vehicle occupying that Grand Touring slot is the Evoque, because the true Evoque is the $2.3 million Halo hypercar, which is actually correctly detailed later in Level 6.
I have to admit, when I first read that, I had to stop and backtrack.
Yeah, it's confusing.
I thought I had misread the pricing tier completely. Having the exact same name occupy two vastly different economic and performance brackets creates immediate cognitive dissonance.
It really does. For a reader who intimately understands automotive taxonomy, this is just a glaring red flag.
But I want to push back slightly. Is a single misidentified model name really a structural crisis for the whole piece, or just like a quick find and replace typo?
Well, it's more than a typo because it muddles the entire business thesis the author is trying to build here.
How so?
When you're detailing a shift as monumental as Lotus moving from the internal combustion Elise into full electrification, well, the market positioning is the story. The reader needs to see the strategic difference between volume sellers and halo cars.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so if I were revising this, I wouldn't just correct the naming error in Level 5 from Evoque to Evoque. I would utilize this exact juxtaposition to actively contrast Lotus's mass market EV strategy with its Halo hypercar strategy.
Right. You make it a feature, not a bug.
Exactly. You can demonstrate a deep understanding of modern automotive market dynamics by explaining why these radically different cars exist in the exact same era.
So instead of just fixing the label on the museum display, we explain why the museum bought the artifacts in the first place.
That's a great way to put it. How exactly do we frame that financial relationship in the text, though?
You add a concise, analytical breakdown in Level 5, explaining the financial ecosystem of modern legacy automakers. You have to explicitly state that the high-volume sales of the more accessible EMEA Grand Tourer and the Electra SUV are the essential financial engines.
They pay the bills.
Right. They are required to fund the extreme boundary-pushing research and development of the $2.3 million Evoque. Right. Because developing proprietary EV architecture isn't like welding together an aluminum tub for a mechanical sports car in the 1990s.
Not at all.
The capital required to develop high-density battery packs, thermal management systems, and proprietary software is just astronomical now.
It's massive. A boutique manufacturer simply cannot survive selling 3,000 lightweight sports cars a year anymore.
No, they'd go bankrupt in months.
Exactly. And that's the crucial context missing from Level 5. The text currently treats the heavy, practical EVs as just like the next arbitrary step in the timeline. But historically, we've seen this exact survival mechanism play out before.
Oh, you mean like Porsche?
Yes. Look at Porsche in the early 2000s. The purists absolutely despised the Cayenne SUV.
Oh, they hated it. It was a total betrayal to them.
Right, but the massive profit margins from the Cayenne paid the bills to keep developing the naturally aspirated 911 G3. Lotus is executing the exact same playbook, just in the electric era. Under Geely's ownership, the Electra and the Evoque are sharing platform costs and generating that volume revenue.
That makes a lot of sense. So the concrete suggestion here is change the name to Evoque, and then explicitly write that these heavy four-door vehicles are not a betrayal of the Lotus badge, but rather the modern economic reality required to subsidize the Evoque hypercar.
Spot on.
It shifts the reader's perspective from seeing these EVs as corporate cash grabs to seeing them as necessary strategic weapons.
Precisely. It turns the heavy vehicles into the heroes of the corporate ledger. They pay the bills so the hypercar can break the records.
I love that. Now, if the volume cars are what keep the lights on, the Halo hypercar has to justify the brand's prestige, right? It has to justify that $2.3 million price tag.
Oh, absolutely.
And the text attempts to do this by pivoting to the brand's motorsport legacy. As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that Lotus's Formula One history, the 7 Constructor Championships, the 79 race victories, the pioneering aerodynamic innovations, well, all of that serves as the historical justification for their modern premium pricing.
Right, the heritage tax.
Exactly. But structurally, the way this is executed brings the entire narrative to a grinding halt.
Yeah, the pacing just drops.
The author uses a strict list format. We move chronologically through tangible physical vehicles, level 1, level 2, level 3. But then we hit level 4, and suddenly we are entirely removed from consumer cars.
Right.
We are thrust into an abstract conceptual chapter about motorsport history from the 1970s and 80s. It feels like we're on an incredibly engaging, fast-paced factory tour, walking down the assembly line looking at the machinery, and suddenly the tour guide forces us into a quiet room to read a history textbook for 15 minutes before we can see the next car.
Is the connection between A and B fully established in the material, or is that an area to potentially bolster?
I'd say it definitely needs bolstering.
Because interrupting a chronological progression of consumer vehicles with an abstract conceptual chapter disrupts the reader's momentum and the structural integrity of the piece.
It's just a wall of text right in the middle.
Yeah, the structural roadblock here is that level 4 abandons the very formatting conceit the author established.
Right.
By placing the intangible, historical F1 heritage right after the highly practical physical Evora in level 3 and right before the massive, heavy electric vehicles in level 5, the list format loses its vehicle-by-vehicle escalation.
The rhythm is gone.
Completely. The reader's brain is expecting to see the next step in product evolution, and instead, they're handed a conceptual history lesson that effectively pauses the timeline.
It feels completely disjointed. But you can't just delete the history, right? I mean, the Formula One legacy is the only reason a buyer will accept a 7-figure price tag from Lotus instead of just buying, say, a Rimac or a Pininfarina.
Oh, for sure.
The heritage has to be in the document somewhere.
It needs to be the pavement that gets you to the next destination.
I like that.
So my suggestion would be to remove F1 heritage as a numbered level entirely. Instead, weave it in as a thematic bridge that explicitly connects the historical lightweight era to the modern hypercar era. You want to synthesize the abstract history into the physical engineering reality of the cars being discussed.
Okay, I see the logic, but how do we achieve that mechanically on the page?
What do you mean?
Like, how do we take a paragraph about 1970s racing championships and make it physically relevant to an electric hypercar in 2026?
Ah, gotcha. Well, you do it by focusing on the specific mechanics of aerodynamic innovation.
Okay.
As a concrete example, you can reframe the text currently sitting in level 4 into a standalone interlude, maybe titled something like The Heritage Engine.
Nice.
And position it immediately before introducing the Evija in level 6. Then explicitly link Colin Chapman's F1 ground effects directly to the Evija's modern bodywork.
Right, because right now the text just says Chapman invented ground effects, but it doesn't explain how that works or why it matters today.
Exactly. It assumes the reader knows the exact physics of a 1978 F1 car, which is a massive leap.
It really is. Let me see if I can map this out. Chapman's classic F1 cars like the Type 78 and 79 revolutionized motorsport by using side skirts that literally brushed the tarmac to seal the underside of the car.
Right, to manage the air.
Yeah, they created a massive low-pressure zone, like a vacuum, that sucked the car down onto the track, generating incredible cornering grip, without adding the aerodynamic drag of a massive top-mounted wing.
Exactly. That was the magic of mechanical ground effects, managing airflow under the car.
Okay.
Now take that mechanical explanation and draw a direct line to the Evija hypercar. The Evija iterates on that exact same philosophical principle, but instead of just routing air under a sealed floor, it utilizes massive Venturi tunnels carved straight through the rear quarter panels.
Right, those huge gaps in the rear?
Yeah, it channels enormous volumes of high-speed airflow through the car itself.
So the car is essentially porous.
Exactly.
It's using the air moving through its own bodywork to simulate the downforce that a massive physical wing would normally provide.
Yes, the airflow acts as virtual bodywork. By explaining the mechanism of the Type 79 sealed floor and then contrasting it with the Evija's porous Venturi tunnels, you validate the heritage.
You're showing the math.
Exactly. You're proving to the reader that the 1970s F1 aerodynamic philosophy isn't just marketing copy. It is literally carved into the carbon fiber of the modern hypercar.
Wow, yeah, that completely changes the dynamic of the chapter. It takes a piece of abstract history and weaponizes it as a physical engineering feature of the car we're about to look at.
Right.
You're not asking the reader to respect the history, you're forcing them to see the history actively working at 200 miles per hour.
And it reinforces the idea that Lotus isn't just resting on its laurels. They're actively evolving their own historic breakthroughs.
Which leads us directly to the most glaring tension in this entire document. So, a key theme running through this material seems to be the extreme, almost violent contrast in the brand's core engineering philosophy over time.
Oh, the weight issue?
Yes, the text rightly points out that Colin Chapman's original, defining creation, the Elise, weighed a mere 1,560 pounds. It treated weight reduction as a moral imperative. Simplify then add lightness wasn't just a slogan.
It was the entire engineering brief.
Exactly. But then, as we transition into the modern era with the Electra SUV, we are suddenly looking at a vehicle that tips the scales at 5,300 pounds.
It's massive.
Right. To a Lotus purist, that isn't just a pivot in corporate strategy, it is ideological whiplash.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of how reconciling Colin Chapman's famous lightweight philosophy with the massive weight of modern electric vehicles requires a nuanced historical justification to satisfy automotive purists?
I think you have to. It is the ultimate automotive contradiction. We go from a car that didn't even have power steering or carpets to save a few ounces to a 2.5-ton electric vehicle packed with luxury amenities.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
For fans,
it feels exactly like watching a fiercely independent acoustic folk musician. Someone who built a 50